the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one true God. Glory be to him, and may his grace and mercy be upon us forever. Amen. Good morning, good evening, Shlomo, Namaskaram to all our followers, well-wishers, and viewers from around the world. Welcome all of you to another live lecture from Urho the Way. No, let me just start with an apology for the delay in starting the live stream, but we're here, and Abuna Iskandar is also here with us. So we welcome Father Iskandar Sharbel Bcheiry on another program with us. We had him a few months back to talk about the sacred geography of Turabdin, and you can visit our YouTube or Facebook page to watch that lecture. Uh, Father Sharbel needs no introduction. He's already been with us in the past few programs. He is currently the Metadata Editor at Atla. He is a prominent researcher in the field of the history of Syriac Christianity, and he's also a Syriac Orthodox priest serving the St. Ephraim Syriac Orthodox Church in Chicago. A more extensive biography can be found in the video description below if you want to check it out. So Father Sharbel is here to talk about a very interesting topic, especially for the Syriac Orthodox in India. So the topic today is why and how was the Syriac Orthodox Maphrianate established in the East? This is a very relevant topic today. As we all know, the Syriac Orthodox Church in India, we lost our Maphriano just over a month back. His beatitude, Abun Mor Basilios Thomas I, he went to be with our Lord on October 31st at the age of 95. He led the church through many trials, and he led it through expanding the church to new horizons around the world. And we also know that the Patriarch of Antioch of our Syriac Orthodox Church, Mor Ignatius Ephraim II, he is in India right now as we speak for the 40th day memorial of his beatitude's departure. And God willing, our Patriarch will oversee the election and ordination of the next Maphriano. So with that, I will let Abuna make his presentation. After the presentation, we will have a live Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments on Facebook or YouTube, and I will pull them up to ask Abuna. Thank you all, and let's all welcome back Father Sharbel. Barak Mor, Abuna.
Barak, thank you, Maren. Shlomo Kulaikul, Shlomo, everybody, and thank you, Maren, for having me in this program. Yes, as you mentioned, the Maphriano and the Maphrianate is very important topic, especially for the church, for the history of the Syriac Orthodox Church in general, also to the Eastern Church in Iraq, in Persia, in India, and and especially in India, where the major focus on the modern history of the Maphrianate and transfer of the Maphrianate into India. But we know a little bit more. We have less information about the historical establishment of the Maphrianate. Therefore, the goal of this lecture is to return back in history to the 6th, 7th century and to try to understand the historical circumstances of the establishment of the Maphrianate and the role of Tikrit, which was the seat of the Maphrianate, the role of the Maphrian, in which historical circumstances occurred. This is the plan for today. I will start by giving an idea about the Christian community in Persia during the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century in a very brief way. Then the development and the conflict between what used to be called Jacobite Nestorian, which both are not correct terminology to describe both community. The Syriac Orthodox Church from one side and the Assyrian Church of the East from the other side, known also historically as the Church of the East. Now, the best things always to start is to start with the map, because it's very fundamental, important to understand what we mean with the East. Means if there is East, means there is West. What is East? What is West? Where's the border? And this is very important aspect also for the question of the apostolic foundation of the Catholicosate or the Maphrianate in the East in connection with Edessa. Means let's start first by the map. You are sharing, Marin, the map here?
Yeah, I can share it.
Okay, and I can slide like that. Right.
Okay, okay,
Now,
sure.
what we see in front of us, we see a map of two empires. On the east, we see the Sasanian Persian Empire, and on the west, the Roman Byzantine Empire. And we can see here the limes, or the border between both empires that runs from north to the south, which divide both empires. And when we say the Church of the East or the East, we are talking about the territory located within the Sasanian Empire or the east of the Roman-Persian border. This is the East. Now, sometimes there is confusion. What is the East? Is it a political division? Is it a geographical division? Because sometimes there is confusion. Instead of thinking about the political border between the Roman and the Persian, sometimes we think about the Euphrates, east of the Euphrates and west of the Euphrates. But this is not correct. When we think about the Church of the East, it starts not by the east of the Euphrates River, but by the east of the Roman-Persian border. The east of the Euphrates could be still within the Roman-Byzantine Empire. For example, Edessa, highlighted or circled by red circle here. Edessa, though located east of the Euphrates River, but still considered located in the west of the Roman-Persian Empire. Because usually when we think about Edessa, and Edessa is the cradle, Edessa is the center of the Syriac literature. We think about Edessa part of the east, but actually Edessa is located within the west, as the map shows here, west of the Persian Roman Empire. Now, Christianity spread in the east or in the Sasanian Empire or the Persian Empire since its beginning. For sure, during the second, third century, there were Christian community established in Erbil, in Hagiography, in Kirkuk, in Efrat Mishan, in Nineveh. However, since the 4th century, little by little, and this is normally, the episcopal seat or the bishop of the Christian community in the capital, Seleuciac Ctesiphon, began to be the center, an ecclesiastical center of the general church or the Christian community in the Sasanian Empire. And also this created kind of tension between the bishop of the capital, Seleuciac Ctesiphon, with the other bishops in the Persian Empire. Until with time and with the support of the church father of the west of Antioch, little by little, the authority of the bishop of the Persian capital, Seleuciac Ctesiphon, was accepted and established and recognized with time. Now, the Church of the East, located within an empire, Zoroastrian, followed the religion of Zoroastrian, and from time to time they will endure, they will experience this from persecution. They will be persecuted. And one of the way, or one of maybe the best way to avoid persecution and not being seen in suspicious way by the Persians because they were Christians and the Roman Empire was a Christian. And in order not to be associated with the enemy, with the Roman Empire, the Christian community in the Sasanian Empire, the Persian, start to affirm and seek their autonomy to detach administratively from the West in order to show that they don't have any relationship and they are not being managed by the church in the Roman Empire. In this way, they would avoid the pressure and the persecution by the Sasanian authority. Now, in the 5th century, there was an earthquake, a theological doctrine earthquake. 431 with the excommunication with Nestor. Nestor was the patriarch of Constantinople, and he didn't have anything to do with the Persian church or the Christian community in the Persian Empire. He lived in the West, he died in the West, and he was the patriarch of Constantinople. But his followers, under the pressure of the Roman, escaped and found refuge in the Persian Empire. And actually, many of the students of Edessa, which is close to the border of the Persian, came originally from Persia, and they were sympathizing with the teaching of the Antiochian school. And when they escaped and returned back to the Persian Empire and became bishops of the episcopal seats, that led into establishing and strengthening the Diophysitism doctrine in the Church of the East. And now here, regarding the terminology, which is really very challenging, how to call and to name the Christian communities in Persia. The Church of the East, or the Assyrian Church of the East, which is just as a name established 1978, I think, 1976, something like that, just recently. Historically also were called Nestorians or East Syrians. There are many names and we are confused. For my lecture,
What do they call themselves in the literature?
now formally are being called the Assyrian Church of the East, or there is another church hierarchy, independent, only simply the Old Church of the East, or the Old Church of the East, or the Assyrian Church of the East. While what they were used to be called Jacobite, and sometimes they would call themselves Jacobite, which are the non-Chalcedonian. Now we call them the Syriac Orthodox Church, which is our church, the Syriac Orthodox Church. But historically were being called also Jacobite, and sometimes is non-Chalcedonian, Miaphysite, means it's a lot of denomination. You will see now in my talk, sometimes I will use Syriac Orthodox, Assyrian Church of the East, or the Church of the East, or Diophysite, or Miaphysite, or Jacobite, or maybe sometimes Nestorian. It's just names. Now, it's true that the majority of the Christian community of the church in the East under the Sasanian Empire adapted the teaching of Nestor, which was the teaching of Antioch. The majority, but still there were minority. There was minority. And we know that from many sources. And that's minority, Miaphysite, non-Chalcedonian, or non-Nestorian, organized themselves in certain pockets, places, in the Persian Empire. For example, here I will mention a few documentation that they mention these small opposition, let's call them, which later will form the Syriac Orthodox Church in Persia. For example, if we read in the third letter of Barsauma, the Nestorian Metropolitan of Nisibi, the famous one, to his patriarch Acacius of Seleucia Ctesiphon, this letter shows that a Miaphysite minority remained in the city of Nisibis, the diocese of the Metropolitan Barsauma. This letter found in the Synodicon Orientale, published in 1902. Also, for example, the Miaphysite took advantage of the confusion of the Church of the East related to monastic life, when the monks became instrument in the hands of the heretics as they were described in the second canon in the Synod of Acacius 486. The Church of the East, they were a little bit, they had a little bit at certain time during that period difficulty to accept monasticism, and to the level that they made canon against the bishops who encouraged monasticism, is to that level. And Barsaum himself, the Metropolitan of Nisibis, he married a nun, and many monks, they married. It became a big deal in the Church of the East. However, the Syriac Orthodox Church, Miaphysite, and since the beginning they were and they had very strong monastic spirit and zeal, and they were successful, able to penetrate many places in the East through the monastic activity. And we know that from where? From the second canon of the Synod of Acacius, 486. And we can read that in the Synodicon Orientale. Another source to have an idea about the presence of the Syriac Orthodox Church in Persia, the famous Simon of Beth Arsham, Shimon of Beth Arsham. He was a Syriac Orthodox hero. He was Syriac Orthodox Miaphysite missionary to spread Miaphysism in Persia. And he is famous with certain or collection of letters. If we read in his letter on Barsauma, the famous Barsauma, the Metropolitan of Nisibis, he wrote about him and the heresy of the Nestorians. He says, and he gives the names of many people who played role in spreading, defending, strengthening the Miaphysite or non-Chalcedonian or the anti-Nestorianism in Persia. And here you have an example. If we take the map of the Church of of Iraq and the Persian Empire, I highlighted in red. You will see here in red some of the places where you can find an opposition, anti-Nestorian present community, Syriac Orthodox Church or Miaphysite. You see a community in Sinjar, a presence in Qardu, a presence in Arzul, in Hagiography, in Kirkuk, in Karme, in Firshabur, close to the capital itself, and in Hira. But the major, the strongest, the presence of the Syriac Orthodox always was Tikrit, which was later established as the seat of the Maphrianate. Tikrit played a great role. And always when we think about the Maphrianate, the first things come to our mind, Tikrit. Tikrit was the capital, let's say, was the center of the Miaphysite Church or the Syriac Orthodox Church in Iraq, and the authority of the Maphrianate extended even much further than Iraq itself. And I circled Tikrit here. Now, but still, the presence of the Syriac Orthodox Church, or the Miaphysite, was a minority in Iraq or in Persia. The majority were the Church of the East. Then, in the
Just one question, I think. So before Nestorius was condemned at the council, what was the church in Persia? Were they all Orthodox, or were they like non-Trinitarian? Like, did they accept the other councils?
No, they were in communion with the church in the West, but the means they were the issue, the Christological issue didn't exist yet.
Okay.
There was no debate about one nature, two nature, but they had respect to the interpretation and the teaching of Diodorus of Tarsus and Theodore of Mepsuest.
Right.
Those two teachers, the Antiochian teacher, and they were the teacher of Nestor himself.
Mhm.
And especially the Persian students in Edessa, when they returned back to their territory and to their homeland, they brought what they were taught by whom? By the teaching of Theodorus of Metsuestia and Theodore of Tarsus.
Tarsus, yeah.
But before all that explosion, let's say, Christological crisis, didn't exist, means it was not even an issue. Now,
Right. Okay.
the anti-Nestorianism, now we are using this incorrect terminology, anti-Nestorianism, when they were not even Nestorian, means Nestorian didn't live even. But a Miaphysite, let's say, community, they were a minority. Then during the 6th century, their presence grew noticeably to become a strong, solid minority, but strong and solid. And there are reasons. Among those reasons, for example, you can find Miaphysites from local people. Originally, they were from Iraq and from the Persian Empire. Originally, they were from there. For example, Philoxenos of Mabuch, he was from Iraq. Shamun of Arsham, he was from the Persian territory. Also, there were converts from the Church of the East. One of them, for example, a famous author, Sahduna, very famous theologian, spiritual mystic, Diophysite author, converted to Miaphysism. The second reason of the growth of the number of the Syriac Orthodox Church in the East were the mass deportation from Syria, Upper Mesopotamia, and Anatolia by whom? By the Persian kings. From time to time, the Persian king will invade Syria, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and will bring captives in a massive number from Antioch, from Hama, from Homs, from Edessa, from Anatolia, from many places, and will install them in Iraq or in Persia. He will found an entire city similar to those cities found in the West, but in Iraq. And these helped the number, because many of them were Miaphysite, helped the number of the Miaphysite to increase in the eastern part. And if there were, and for sure there were, Chalcedonian brought from Antioch, because they were extremely small minority, will intermingle, will be part of the closest. And who are the closest? The non-Chalcedonian. Now, the third reason of the growth of the Syriac Orthodox Church in Iraq is the refugee, because after Anastasius and during Justinian the First, Justin, then Justinian the First, then Justinian the Second, there was a big pressure on the Miaphysite in Syria, Mesopotamia, and certain part in east of Anatolia. Many monks, many bishops, many people abandoned their places and escaped and took refuge in the or on the border, places on the border, or they passed the border and they escaped and they went to Persia. And this is increased the number also with the Syriac Orthodox Church there. Another important and very important reason is the missionary work among the Arab tribes in Mesopotamia. Now, the Syriac Orthodox Church in the 6th century, the middle of the 6th century, they were located between two blocks and they had difficulty to move or to pass. From the west, you have a strong Chalcedonian block in the west of Syria, Anatolia, Constantinople. And by the second half of the 6th century, it was impossible to change that situation. And from the east, they had another block, the Diophysite, or the Church of the East, or the Nestorian. They had difficulty to spread the Miaphysism into the Iranian plateau, for example. Also because of the Zoroastrian, or to penetrate in a large way Iraq or Mesopotamia. The only way to spread was among the Arab tribes. And the Arab tribes were important also because of the political role, because at the end, a church needs the political support. Who can guarantee, who can protect, who can affirm the authority of a bishop, for example, on a certain church or a certain monastery? Everybody can claim a monastery or a church. But when you have the support of the authority, the government, then the result will be different. It means the support of the government plays a big role in the spreading, prospering, strength of a Christian community. The Syriac didn't have that with the Byzantine, and they didn't have that with the Persian. They tried to have it through the Arab leaders, the sheikh of the tribes in the region. And actually, in the region, there were two local, let's say, Arab power. We have in Syria Al-Ghassasina here, and in the Persian Empire you have the Banu Lakhmite, the tribe, and their authority even extended to Oman, Arabia, East Arabia, and the capital was Al-Hira. Because of that, Hira in the 6th century became a major battlefield, a major center that attracted the Nestorian missionary from one side and the Syriac Orthodox missionary from the other side. We have historical sources from the Syriac Orthodox Church, for example, describing Shimon of Arsham and other people who did a lot of work there. And we have also the same thing from the Nestorian part. It was a place that both battled and did all the effort to convince. Al-Hira. Who was, at that time, you have people, you have community, but the Syriac Orthodox Church had little bishops. According to the Syriac Orthodox Chronicles, from the time like John of Ephesus, and others, they mention the presence of very few bishops for the Miaphysite who will administer the sacraments. People, they need to be baptized. People, they need to do the church sacraments. Means at the end, who will consecrate a priest or deacon? You need a bishop. If you don't have bishop, it's a big problem. And there was few bishops. John of Ephesus talks about only one bishop, found in Sinjar, close to the west. Therefore, Saint Jacob Paradeos, who played a big role in activating, reorganizing the Syriac Orthodox Church in the west, ordained a bishop named Ahudema in the east and appointed him as great metropolitan to manage the Syriac Orthodox Church in the Persian Empire. And Ahudema did a great job, especially among the Arab tribes. How do we know that? From his life. His life was written by Marutha of Tikrit. We'll talk about him. He described his life. He gave us so much detail about his activity, especially about the Arab tribes. He had very special relationship with the Arab tribes found in between Hira, Fallujah, Anbar, Balad, between Mosul. But at that time, there was not even Mosul. It was like a small village called Nineveh, what remained from the great Nineveh, ruined places. Hadema played a big role. Now, then what changed the situation radically? It's what occurred at the 7th century, early 7th century. Now, we know in the east there is the Persian Empire, in the west there is the Roman Empire. Then, around 604, the Persian army, led by two military commanders, invaded the Roman territory in a massive way. And most of the Roman territory in the west, in Syria, Anatolia, and even in Egypt, collapsed within 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Antioch, Damascus, Aleppo, Homs, Jerusalem, even Egypt collapsed and conquered by the Persians, to the level the Persian army arrived and surrounded, besieged the city, the capital of the Roman Empire, Constantinople. Means the empire capital was saved by miracle. Now, here, this political change, military change, had impact, consequences on the other aspects. And those aspects will have impact on church politics also. Everything is related. Now, when the Persians invaded all this territory, which most of them were Miaphysites, if we speak about Armenia, Syria, East Anatolia, and Egypt, if we count the population there, and we see percentage-wise the Miaphysite, they are the majority at that time. Now, this big Miaphysite bloc found in this occupied territory became part of the Persian Empire. If we count them also with the solid minority of Miaphysite in the Persian Empire, in this way, things changed. Now, the Nestorians who were the majority became minority, and the Miaphysites who were minority became majority. And for the interest of the Persian Empire to contain and to confirm and establish their authority in this occupied territory, for their politics, they had the interest to build a good relationship with the Miaphysite, which they are the majority. Especially the Miaphysite had no good relationship with the Byzantine, Chalcedonian Byzantine. Means for the Persian interest is better to build now good relationship with the Miaphysite, not so much with the Nestorian. To the level that when the Patriarch of the Church of the East died, is the Diophysite, incorrectly, I'm calling them Nestorian, died, they were forbidden by the order of the king to ordain another bishop, another patriarch. Means the patriarchal seat of the Nestorian became empty and they were not allowed to ordain, while the Syriac Orthodox were encouraged to the level at that time. Here in this context, the personage and the person of the figure of Marutha of Tikrit appear on the ecclesiastical historical theater, let's say. Marutha of Tikrit played big role. Originally, he was from Persia. He was from the region. He was from nowadays area north of Mosul, close to in Iraq, called Duhok. He was from Syriac Orthodox family. He became a monk there. He lived in the monastery of Mor Marutha. Then he went to Syria, where he became a monk in the city of Raqqa, then in Edessa, and it seems he was well known by the church authority, ecclesiastical leadership in Syria, with other two of his friends, also from Persia. Now, when all this politics changed and the Miaphysite had a favorite situation, he moved and returned back to Persia, and he went to the capital itself. Why? Because in the capital, Seleucia Ctesiphon, the Persian Sasanian capital, there were two important figures were working in favor of the Syriac Orthodox against the Nestorian. The first one, Dr. Gabriel, the medical. He was a doctor, physician. He was a physician. His name Gabriel from Sinjar. Originally, he belonged to the Church of the East. He was Nestorian. Then, for some reason, converted to the Miaphysite. He did all his effort to support the Miaphysite against the Nestorian. Why he was important? Because the wife of the king, her name Sherry, was barren, was unable to give a child to the king. And this doctor, he was able to cure her, and she gave birth to the king. Therefore, this doctor became supported by the king, and he had very special place in the palace. Also, the queen herself, Shireen, played a role. She established a church and monastery for the Miaphysite close to her palace and the royal court. In that situation, who was there also? The head of the Miaphysite church, the metropolitan. His name Samuel, lived there. Now we see the leadership of the Syriac Orthodox Church in Persia instead to work in Hira or Nineveh or Duhok. We see them concentrated in the capital. And there Marutha went. And he was very strict and he made great effort with other monks. We can say, using the terminology, he was lobbying. We say lobby, he was lobbying, working in the capital city in favor of the Syriac Orthodox Church with other people. However, nothing remained the same. The political situation also flipped, changed. And when things change, also there are consequences and they impact many things, among them church politics. When Heraclius, the Roman emperor, led his army and he counterattacked the Persian to the level he arrived even near to their capital, and the king escaped, then he was killed, and big confusion occurred in the Persian Empire. The Romans were able to return back their territory. And now the Miaphysites are no more the majority of the Christian in the Persian Empire. They return back to be a solid, but still a minority. And immediately after the killing of the king and the change of the royal authority, immediately the Church of the East elected a new patriarch and reorganized themselves. And the Syriac Orthodox Church, for example, the Life of Marutha, tells us that there was a pressure on the lobby group, let's say, in the capital, Marutha and his friend, to the level they escaped from the capital and they sought refuge. They lived in certain caves close to the Euphrates River near the city of Fir Shabur, which is Firuz Shabur, Fir Shabur, which is Fallujah nowadays. In Al Anbar, Fallujah, known nowadays, Euphrates River, there were caves. He went with his friends to live there. And this is strange, because
Which year is this happening in?
Right. This is, let's say, 620, 27, 28. 627, 28. We are talking about 1 year before his ordination as the great metropolitan.
Okay.
627, 628. In those years, he left the capital, he went to that. And this is a little bit strange because he's supposed to return back to the monastery of Mor Marutha, or to return back to or to return back to Tikrit, for example, to retreat northwards. I don't understand why he went to Fallujah now. Probably because there were aspiration or expectation or plan or hope to build something with the Arab tribes, found heavily strong presence near Fallujah and Hira and that area. And this is, we know it because immediately after the reorganization of the Church of the Syriac Orthodox Church in Persia, and in the consequent years, we have 3-4 archdioceses, Syriac Orthodox archdioceses in Fallujah, Al-Bahr, and the Hira, and that area. Among whom? Among the Arabs, the tribe of Namroy, the Namroy. How do we know that? Well, his life tells us that is the story of his life. And these, I will leave the Arab things now here a little bit, and from this statement, let's say, someone can build up another topic about the relationship between the Syriac, Miaphysite with the Arab, and building connection, relationship in that area where they will meet the Islam and the Arab after 15 years after that. This is another topic. That means this is like basis, a platform for another topic, let's say.
Yeah.
Now we return back to the situation. Now the political situation changed, and the patriarch has to reorganize his church because now, again, there is border and there is sensitivity to cross the border or to deal with a community under different political authority. He needs to create, to establish, to confirm, to strengthen a local hierarchical structure in the East so that they will be able to manage themselves with a direct help from the Patriarch of Antioch or no direct help. They will have their own structure, but always under the authority of the Patriarch. Because always the Patriarch is the head of the church, but they have a large margin to manage their need, recognized clearly by the patriarchal institution in the West. And this is the reason why the Patriarch sent after Marutha with 2 of his friends to Syria, where he was ordained metropolitan, and he was installed, and his seat was established in Tikrit. This occurred 629. 229, about 2 years after these political changes. And here one can ask why the patriarch did that, why he was in urge to establish or to reorganize the Syriac Orthodox Church. Now, before even to talk about that, here I will move what exactly happened, because most of the Syriac studies, if we read the Syriac study, like John Maurice Fier and other, they understand two events occurred, and this is because really the sources they talk about two events in 629, 28, 29, two events. The first event, the reunion with the seat of the Patriarch of Antioch, after a separation dating back to the Nestorian penetration into the Church of Persia under the influence of Bishop Barsal. This is what we understand from the Syriac sources. And another event occurred. The second decision was when the non-Diophysite diocese of the East, with the Syriac Orthodox Church, the Miaphysite, were reorganized into great metropolitan, whose center was Tikrit. Two events in that year. One, reuniting again the Syriac Orthodox Church in Persia with Antioch after a long separation and obscure relationship, almost nothing. They didn't know nothing about themselves. And the second one, establishing and reorganizing the church and the metropolitan. Why these scholars, what Syriac studies, they talk about that? Because actually this is what Michael the Syrian talks and what the document of the canon of Mor Marutha 629 and Hebraues and however, this really happened? No. It was only one event. Because if we return back to the church chronicles, always there was connection and communication and relationship between the Syriac Orthodox Church in the East and the Syriac Orthodox Church in the West. There was connection. There was no a total separation and total ignorance about each other, as the sources are telling us, and I will explain why we have that. Actually, the only real, genuine documents that really describe what occurred about the establishment of the Maphrianate is the Life of Marutha. The Life of Marutha is a genuine, authentic document written almost in that time by Denha, the Maphrian who came after Marutha. He wrote the Life of Marutha, and he gives us what occurred. And here I will move to this chart. Here we have the Life of Marutha of Tikrit, which is a genuine document. Then we have a document called the Canon of the Monastery of Mor Marutha, supposedly composed in 629. But this one actually composed in 912, after almost 300 years after that, under certain circumstances. Also, we have the documentation of correspondence preserved in the Chronicle by Michael of the Syrian. There are a lot of anachronistic and contradictory details with the historical background, the historical context, and with the life of Marutha and others. There are many information that doesn't fit with the internal sources and external historical context. And the same thing regarding the canon of Mor Marutha. And the same thing, Gregorius Bar Hebraios, he didn't invent. Gregorius Bar Hebraios, he based his information and his narration of the establishment of the Maphrianate in Persia and the Church of the Syriac Orthodox Church history in Iraq, based little bit from the Life of Marutha of Tikrit, and mainly by the information found in the document, the Canon of Mor Marutha 629, and the documentation of Michael the Syrian. Bar Hebraios, he gathered information and he elaborated them and he narrated what he had. But if you return back, for example, to the tradition inauguration by Patriarch Kyriakos in 817 resolved problem between Marmatai and Tikrit. We see that he didn't know nothing. After there was always tension between Marmatai and Tikrit. Marmatai and Tikrit, and these documentation were written from a pro-Mathai view. However, if we return back to the Syriac Orthodox other documentation from that time, for example, Patriarch Kyriakos, he doesn't know nothing about those. Other than those are containing many anachronistic and contradictory details. Means we have this is genuine, and here it's mixed about few elements here and few elements to serve certain church politic between Mor Marutha monastery and Tikrit. Maybe we don't have now so much time to explain that.
So this monastery of Mor Marutha, is it on the Persian side or is it
both in the Persian?
Both in Persian, yeah.
Right. Now we have two major centers for the Syriac Orthodox Church. We have Tikrit, a strong town, and we have a monastery near Nineveh, Mosul, monastery of Mor Marutha. Two poles, two centers. The Maphrianate was established in Tikrit. However, in the 8th, 9th century, the city of Nineveh enlarged, which was under the authority of the monastery of Mor Marutha. The monastery of Mor Marutha was a famous, nice, beautiful, big, strong, but a monastery. But in the 9th century, the small Nineveh enlarged into a huge city, which became the capital of North Iraq, even Al Jazeera in Syria, Mosul, which was legally under the jurisdiction of the monastery of Mor Marutha, and that gave privilege and strength to Mor Marutha to claim the supremacy in the east. Why Tikrit when Mosul here?
Yeah.
You know, it's changed the perspective to see the center. Where's the center? In Persia or in Iraq.
Right.
And that led to always attention, especially many Tikritians lived in Mosul, which legally they have to be under the authority of the bishop of the monastery of Mor Marutha. But they didn't recognize the authority of Mor Marutha, and they were very proud, saying, still, we only recognize the authority of the bishop of Tikrit. And that created a big tension between both, and the patriarch sometimes will come like Patriarch Kyriakos to resolve the problem and say, okay, let's return back in history. Let's resolve this. Let's see in the tradition what was given as a privilege to the monastery of Mor Marutha, what was given privilege to the monastery of Tikrit, and he will list what he has after investigation and. But he never alluded to any of those, which by themselves they contain historical information, but at the same time many anachronistic and contradictory details. And here I will give an example. For example, this document, the Canon of Mor Marutha, this is, when we read it, we see like three layers, textual layers, three intertextual layers. At the surface, you see a crisis, ecclesiastical disputation in 912. It is a document, a statement issued by the monastery of Mor Marutha about the consecration of Christopher, metropolitan of the Holy and Divine Monastery of Mor Marutha, and detachment from the authority of the king. They said, we will ordain the bishop that we would like, and we will name him, appoint him as metropolitan, and we don't have nothing to do with Tikrit. What they did, this is ecclesiastical disputation, this is the crisis, this is the action. Now, they need to justify that fact. How you justify that fact? By return back to history. Now, if you don't have nothing in history, you will create something from history. The second layer, forging a document to justify Mor Marutha's claim of authority in 912. The Synod of Mor Marutha Monastic 629. I did a study and I published in Parole de l'Orient, making comparison between both documents and shows that they were written at the same time and each one reflects the other. And the second one here is a support of the first one to justify. We did this because 300 years ago we had a privilege, and this shows, but it's just forging a document to justify. Now, also here you have a third level, third layers of supportive elements. They will go even further in history from the past. They will talk about the conversion of the people of Tikrit to Christianity. Thanks to whom? To Garmai, the bishop, the metropolitan of the monastery of Mor Marutha. There is a story now that even the people of Tikrit were converted by whom? By us, by the monastery of. We have a privilege over them. These reflect the crisis of 10th century. But it has so much anachronistic. I gave this as an example when we studied the documentation. You distinguish what is authentic, what was forged, and why, in which circumstances, and which real documents that we can rely on when we speak about the establishment of the Maphrianate, and what was really the scenario regarding the establishment of the Maphrianate. Beside all these additional things that they don't even belong to the 7th century, they belong to the 10th century. This is just an example regarding these, and we can do the same thing regarding Michael the Syrian, we can do the same thing regarding Bar Hebraues. And actually we'll talk a little bit about Bar Hebraues in one, I think, of the question when we do that. I will conclude here. Yeah, I will conclude here. What was the reason of all this documentation? Because here in our lecture, we are not just talking about what occurred, the scenario, the historical background, but also we are trying to do a modest, quick analysis of the documentation, the historical sources that they talked about the reorganization of the Syriac Orthodox Church in a very brief way. Here are a few examples. But one of the major concerns here, one of the major concerns was the apostolic foundation. You have a bishop. Who ordained your bishop? Who was the first bishop? What is the credibility of the bishopric of the Syriac Orthodox Church? Because all the life of the people from spiritual religions is related to that. If you are hoping to live eternally in heaven, to avoid hell, to do all the sacraments, means at the end you have to be administered by a lawful priest, or then by a lawful legal bishop. And who gave that authority to the bishop? I will conclude here, for example, Ahodama. Ahodama was a bishop ordained metropolitan by Jacob Baradeo, bishop, who ordained him bishop. And the Syriac Orthodox Church. You know, even his life, written by Marutha himself, he says he was a bishop. However, he was born from a heretical family, something like that, then converted to our church. He was a bishop converted to our church. Uskov, bishop, not metropolitan, bishop. Who ordered him? And Ahodama, the great Ahodama, means how can we rewrite the history? How can we justify things? How can we clarify things? How we can connect things to the apostolic foundation? This is just an idea of little bit of analysis and historical background of the establishment of the Maphrianate. Thank you very much. Thank
you. Thank you, Abuna, for giving us a brief idea of the documents and the main reason why this Maphrianate was established. I think we had a few questions also that we can do. Maybe we can go for maybe 10 minutes. Let's see. Okay, so one of the questions we got before the before the program was about in the Ecclesiastical Chronicle of Mor John of Ephesus, when Morahudeme was established as the Grand Metropolitan of the East. It suggests that Morahudeme was the Catholicos for the Orthodox in Persia, and he's also called the Catholicos in the Chronicle of Zuknin. So, is it reasonable to believe that the Persian Miaphysites they thought that he was still in that line of Catholicos, like the Church of the East has?
Right. Actually, even John of Ephesus, who was contemporary to Ahodama, called Ahodama, saying that he is the Catholicos of the Orthodox. But yes, he's saying it in a context, the Catholicos of the Orthodox, not the Catholicos of the Church of the East or the Catholicos of the Orthodox. Means the Orthodox, according to John of Ephesus, are the Miaphysites. Means for the Syriac Orthodox Church, they consider Ahodama as reconnecting to the line. Reconnecting. But they recognize those who came before him, even after him, as the Catholicos, but taken over by the Nestorian. And Ahodama's line is a reconnection to the Catholicos. Yes, they can believe that, but is yeah, they can believe that.
Yeah, but
Everybody can believe what you
technically,
want. Yeah,
yeah,
it means you
technically
can.
it's from Antioch, right? Not from Seleucia, Ctesiphon.
Yeah, not Seleucia because he can't. And this was important and dangerous to claim the Catholicos said because the Catholicos, for example, even when the Arab came, they said, okay, the Nestorian Catholicos said will reside in the capital, Baghdad, are the majority, while the Syriac Maphrianate will reside in Tikrit. Means in order to really claim the Catholicos then you will have a problem with the government itself. But you can claim the bishop as your Catholicos. Yeah.
Yeah. And another, I think, related question is that so did they ever see themselves as the successors of Saint Thomas the Apostle? Because
Yeah.
there is that tradition in Iraq that Saint Thomas established a line of bishops there.
Right. Right. Barhebrius, the famous
Yeah.
one, would be Barhebrius, who wrote the history of the Patriarch and the Maphrianate. And the first Maphrian that he starts with, and not just him, even the Church of the East, the Church of the East, also, they start with St. Thomas. St. Thomas. But let's focus on the Church, the Syriac Orthodox Church, through Barhebrius' Chronicle of the Maphrianate, the ecclesiastical history. He starts with St. Thomas. St. Thomas went to Mesopotamia, passed through Iraq, Persia, and from there he went to India. And he was the first one who established. Then Adai in Edessa, then Ajay, then Mary, who really came to Mesopotamia. However, Barhebrius, he makes kind of nuances, some particular things in his presentation. First of all, with St. Thomas, what Barhebrius really said. St. Thomas, while preaching, moving from country to country, he came to Tikrit, where he met with the garrison, military garrison, appointed by the Persian king Ardashir in Tikrit. They believed his preaching, they converted to Christianity, and he named was the leader of this Tikritian in that garrison. His name Hadib Shaba. And this, for Barhebrius, is a major stop for the preaching of St. Thomas. Barhebrius, he stopped on that. He focused on that. He enlarged that because In that way, he gives apostolic foundation to Tikrit. Even Bar Hebrus, he was Maphrianate.
Yeah.
He connect his line through Tikrit, not even Seleucid Ctesiphon. If Seleucid Ctesiphon, they connect themselves to Mary or to St. Thomas, actually we also, and through Tikrit itself, we are connected to St. Thomas. Because they came to Tikrit. St. Thomas, according to Bar Hebrus, he walked through the country, preached here, but when he came to Tikrit, there is a major stop. Meeting. And when, according to Bar Hebrus' narration, then in Tikrit he was so happy, there was big conversion. Then the Holy Spirit spoke to St. Thomas and told him, I'm sending you to India. What Bar Hebrus says, St. Thomas was so not happy, he was so sad. He didn't want to go there. See the psychological, and like he was so happy in Tikrit. And if the Holy Spirit maybe didn't call him to go to India, he would stay in Tikrit. Like Tikrit was the major place. He didn't say that, but you see, walking here and there and becoming Tikrit, he was extremely happy. Then he was bothered by the Holy Spirit because he asked him to go to another place, and really he was sad. But he obeyed. See the emphasis, the focus, the elaboration of Bar Hebrus to give importance to Tikrit and reconnect the Tikritian line straight to St. Thomas.
Yeah. Is it so? Does it make sense to say that it should be like, because like Saint Peter is in Antioch and Saint Thomas is in Tikrit? Should they be independent? Does Bar Hebrus, does he think that? No, right? I don't.
He doesn't. He doesn't think about real independency. He doesn't think about that. This still should be under Antioch.
Yeah.
Is there kind of contradiction here? Kind of. This is a full opposites and this one full opposites, right? Means each one is established. Yeah, from one side, but also there is a church politics. There is a church also. It means there is not for church circumstances, church reality. There is realism in church. Sometimes, if it works or doesn't work theologically, it doesn't really mean or make that big difference. It means also you have the realism of the daily life, of the interest of the politics, of many things. And Bar Hebrus, yes, he will emphasize on the apostleship foundation of the creed, but still he is under the authority of the Patriarch of Antioch.
I mean, even St. Thomas went to other places and established bishops also. So we can't say that every place is independent, right?
Right.
It's still all under Antioch, because that's the way that the church was organized after Nicaea. Okay, I think that makes sense. I think another question was, so there was another council, the Council of Kafartuta, I think. And does that have any? I think this is asking about the tension between the Patriarch and the Maphrianate, like their authority in the region.
Right. Now the tension is later. You will have tension between the Maphrian and the Patriarch. It is much more complex than that. If we will really read and analyze the historical, you have kind of four centers. In the west, there is the Patriarchate of Antioch, and there is the Upper Mesopotamia in the west, but they have tendency of autonomy. Both they are in the west. In the east, also you have two centers. You have Tikrit and Mor Marutha, and Mor Marutha has kind of tendency for autonomy. And sometimes the Patriarchate will align with Tikrit to control Upper Mesopotamia and Mor Marutha. And sometimes Mor Marutha means always there was the Maphrianate was not the Maphrian authority or impact or influence was not a little one. because the Tikritian, they had very strong, wealthy community in the West. They had strong presence in Al-Raqqa, which is located in the West, and the strong center Syriac Orthodox Church supposedly means should and is under the Patriarchate. But as people, the wealthy people, the influential people were Tikritian from the East, and always they sympathize with their Maphrian. And when the Patriarch will annoy the Maphrian or they will have tension with the Maphrian, always his own, supposedly people, means at the end they are located and resided in his dominion, direct dominion. In the West, they will support their Maphrian against the Patriarch. You have Tikritian community in Edessa, in Harran, and later even in Malatya and in Egypt itself. Deir Syrian, the famous Deir Syrian in Egypt, who rebought it, who strengthened it, who took care of it. The Tikritian came from Tikrit. The wealthy Tikritian Marutha, the Tikritian, not our Maphrian, another one. He was a governor, secretary, finance secretary of the Umayyad. He's extremely wealthy, Tikritian. And the Zuqnini Chronicle describes the Tikritian, how they were very wealthy, but they were like interfering so much in the church politics and in the church matter, and they are so much arrogant. But they are living in the West, and they are bothering the Patriarch. There is tension between sometimes the Maphrian and the Patriarch, and then you see all that dynamic aspect on the ground between the Syriac community, which part of them they belong even to the Maphrian. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's still. I mean, yeah, it's a contentious issue about like who is stronger in a region, right? Because the people of Tikrit will think that the patriarch is far away. What does he know about governing us? But they will try to side with the Maphrian.
They are closer geographically to the Patriarch, but
Yeah,
emotionally, still they
yeah,
are.
yeah. It's still with the yeah.
The same thing occurred in Mosul. One of the major problems between Mor Marutha and Tikrit, you had the strong Tikritian community in Mosul, which geographically under the authority of the monastery of Mor Marutha, but they refused, and they had their own norms, their customs, and their consideration to their Maphrian, and that created so much a problem. Yes, sometimes and most of the time we study church history from the light point of view. We study the history of the patriarch, the Maphrian, the bishop, and less what was going on the ground and how the ground was controlling and impacting and influencing even the hierarchy. Means we see history from the bottom up. It's not particular.
Okay. I think then last question. So I think one interesting question I think is that like what kind of people did the Maphrianate control? So we are only talking about this region of I don't know, Eastern Iraq or Iran, but beyond that, like is there any record of the Maphrian controlling parts of like India or Afghanistan or some of the diocese which traditionally we think of Church of the East areas?
Right. Now, if you want to talk about ethnicity, the populations, for example,
Yeah.
if you're asking also about that,
Yeah.
the Syriac Orthodox Church at the beginning was not a national church. It was not a national church. The same thing as Syrian Church, the Church of the East. And actually, the name, the Church of the East, is a geographical terminology.
Yeah.
It was a geographical location. And here we have the Church of Antioch and Syria. Even the title of the Patriarch was the Patriarch of Antioch and Syria, or the Patriarch of the Church of the East. We are talking about geography, and on this geography you have many populations. In Antioch and west of Syria, you had along of the Syriac speakers people, also you had the Greek speakers people. You had Arabs, you had Persian, you had many other ethnicity and culture and language in Persia. It was not national church, it was geographical church. Later, in the 9th, 10th century, 8th, 9th, 10th century, starts more and more to be a nationalistic church. And the authority of the bishop of the Maphrianate, he had according to the sources, 12 dioceses. But from critical study, those 12 dioceses formed in 629 are a little bit anachronistic. I don't think he had really 12 dioceses, but in the 8th, 9th century, he started to have more dioceses. There were dioceses in Iraq itself. There was dioceses in Afghanistan, in Herat. There was
Mm.
diocese, and there was diocese in Zanjan, Zarjan, some other place in Afghanistan. I forgot exactly the name. The Syriac Orthodox Church had 2 dioceses in Afghanistan, and we have the list of the bishops there till the 11th century in the Chronicle of Michael the Syrian. Michael the Syrian lists the list of the bishops, and you can still see Afghanistan. There is no the word Afghanistan, but city in Afghanistan was the Haram. But the authority sometimes will switch from the Maphrian to the patriarch in that territory. They will be under patriarchal direct management, not even the Maphrian, though they are in Afghanistan and they are closer to the Persian Empire. The authority will switch between the patriarch and the Maphrian toward that. And they used to call them the new diocese. The new diocese, most of the time, will be under the patriarch management, even in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yeah, even today it's like that, I think. Yeah, new dioceses are usually directly under the patriarch. Sometimes, yeah. It, so, is there any mention of India being under the Maphrian?
India, now, what kind of India? Because Arabia used to be called India, Oman used to be called India, Ethiopia used to
Mm.
be called India, Afghanistan used to be called India, Pakistan was part of India. Means India in the Syriac sources is
Yeah,
not
it's
India
just
of
called
today.
like the Hindu or something.
It's a very big
Yeah.
place. Basra in Iraq used to be the port of India. Is
Mm.
India. Now, I am not aware of Syriac Orthodox presence in Kerala and Malabar before the 13th, 12th century of an organized community. I am not aware. Syriac Orthodox before the 13th century.
Mhm.
Now, if you consider Afghanistan part of India, which was in the ancient sources, yeah, you can say in some way they were in North India, but I'm not aware
It's
of.
I think it's there are I think the naming also is a problem, right? Like and the lack of sources about the presence in uh,
Yeah, for sure, the Church of the East, the Nestorian one, were the majority there. It's safe
mhm.
to say that.
Yeah,
Before the conversion and the church in the 16th, 17th century, 15th, 16th century. Syriac, or maybe there were like traders coming.
yeah. I
I,
think the idea is that there were some like Syriac Orthodox or Miaphysite bishops who visited India or Malabar as like as part of the trade routes also. Um, and they may have come from time to time, but I don't think
I
we
heard
can.
from some our Syriac Orthodox Indian priests.
Mm.
They say originally came from Persia, Syriac Orthodox from Persia, under the Zoroastrian and pressure, Islamic pressure. They left Persia and they went to India and they were Syriac Orthodox.
Mm.
I can't deny, but I don't
Yeah,
have clear documentation on my hand.
yeah, right, yeah. No,
But in
that's
North India, Afghanistan, maybe close to Pakistan, but in Afghanistan for sure, which was part of India.
yeah, those are definitely under the Maphrianate because they are listed in the diocese list, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think yeah, that was a good discussion. Thank you, Abuna, for all your hard
Thank you for the
research.
whole, and everybody was listening today. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. It was a very active chat. So I think yeah, I think and we can have further discussions on this depending on your schedule, Abuna, whenever you're available for another discussion. We always welcome you at Urho the Way. And we thank all our viewers, all those who submitted their questions, and we hope that this was useful for you. And we thank you, Abuna, and we wish everyone a good day, a good night.
all the efforts that Urho is making. God bless you. Bless Urho.
Thank you. God bless everyone who was watching, and we'll see you again in another program. Thank you.